All right, so up on the board, can you guys take a look on the board? And so we had talked about the symbol for the battery. And the battery symbol is a long line and a short line. Why are they two different lengths again? Yeah, not two negatives, but because there's a positive terminal and a negative terminal. So the one line represents positive terminal, the short line represents your negative, okay? And if you look, the negative is connected to the positive, so that means this is what kind of circuit? Open or close? Closed. Do you see any breaks in the actual circuit? Nope. So there again, we know that this is an actual closed circuit. So if we look at the two lamps then, so the circle with kind of the curly loop or the curly E on the inside, how many total lamps are there?
2.
All right, so if I had you on the quiz tomorrow, I said, all right, is this picture opened or closed? You would say? Closed. How many batteries?
2.
How many lamps? Any switches? Good, nice job. Then next question I'm going to say is, are the lamps in parallel or are they in series? They are in series, and you know they're in series because with series, they come one after the next. Do you see how there is only one path for those electrons to flow? There's only one path, so it's one after the other. Hello. Yes. Yeah, can I give her in like 5 minutes? Okay, thanks. Bye. All right, so I have 2 lamps, each in series. So we knew yesterday when we added light bulbs, as we add light bulbs, did the lights get brighter or dimmer? They got dimmer, good. And they got dimmer because we had added resistance. And the more resistance that I add, what happens to the current again? Does it go faster or slower? Slower. So it's not going to appear as bright. We also said yesterday when we built this actual circuit, if I unscrewed this light bulb, what's going to happen to the second one? It's going to stop because now there is a break in the circuit. So both lights would actually shut off. So a really good example of this, how many of you guys have ever had like Christmas lights or a string of lights? What happens when one of them goes out? All of them go out, right? Because there's a break. They're starting to get smarter with Christmas lights a little bit because finding which actual light bulb is burnt out is really, really hard. So now they're starting to wire them in parallel. So they'll do a couple sections that are hooked in series, but then hook those in parallel. So hopefully you don't lose all of them and it's easier to identify it. All right, so the main thing then with a series circuit is you have one path for the electrons to flow. Since you are on one path, they are going to be receiving the same current. The current is going to be the same throughout. But that means if I just have one battery, that one battery's voltage has to be divided by however many lights that you have. So if I keep adding more of those light bulbs, like you guys mentioned, that increases the resistance. So as I'm adding resistance, I haven't added any extra batteries. That's going to make it dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. Like I said with series, when one of the lights goes out, they all go out because now there is a break in that path. So yesterday, not so much your period, but the later periods, they started finding some of the lights had burnt out throughout the day. So they would be building their circuit and they're like, why is it not turning on? We problem solved and we figured out, hey, one of the lights was burnt out, okay? And the little light bulbs, there's this little tiny filament. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at it, but the old-fashioned way of checking a normal light bulb, do you guys know what it is?
If it's not broken, like broken.
Yeah, but how can you know if it's broken?
It's gonna fall apart.
Yeah, it is. It did fall apart, but it's really, really small, so sometimes it's hard to see. You guys ever taken a light bulb and shaken it?
No.
If you
Oh, yeah,
shake it, yeah, it's going to make a rattling sound if the filament is actually broken on the inside. If it's not broken, you won't hear anything. So that used to be the one way that we used to figure it out. Now, we all use different types of light bulbs. They've improved the light bulb ever since, not Einstein. Oh, shoot, now I'm blanking on his name. Thomas Edison. There you go. Thomas Edison ever created the first light bulb. So they have improved it more and more and more. All right, so series, biggest thing, one path. So on my board, if you guys take a look, how many batteries are up there for that series one that I have drawn? 1. How many light bulbs are there? 3. Are there any breaks in that circuit up there? No. So when I look at that, would that be brighter or dimmer than 2 light bulbs? Dimmer, right? So the flow of electrons is going to be moving. You're on the same path, so they're going to be going the exact same rate. They're going to be a little bit dimmer. Whereas with parallel, the big difference with parallel is they each are going to be hooked individually with the battery. So what happened when you unscrewed one of them? Did they all turn off? No, they didn't. The only one that turned off is the one that you unscrewed. So if you guys look at this picture here, so this schematic diagram, you're going to notice how many batteries? 1. And then as that current leaves the battery, what's happening to the current every single time I get a new loop? It's splitting, right? So the current gets divided between all those loops. But since we know that the actual light bulbs are hooked individually to the battery, that was part of our definition as to what parallel is. Since they're all hooked individually to the battery, if I add another light bulb in parallel, it's not going to change the brightness. It's going to have the exact same brightness because the voltage is going to be the same because they each are connected individually to that battery, okay? With parallel circuits, I have multiple paths. So if this one burns out, not a big deal. I can go ahead and have that path is still good. That path is still good. So with parallel, multiple paths, electrons keep flowing, even if I go ahead and I unscrew one of those bulbs. Okay? All right, so one of the things that you guys are going to have tomorrow is going to be identifying series or parallel, and then some of those components. So on my very first one that you guys can see right here, do I have one loop or multiple loops? One loop. How many batteries? How many lights? So this is a closed, what kind of circuit? Series, good. Whereas with the second one over here, how many batteries? 2. How many paths are there? 2. So what happens if that guy burns out? Does that turn off? No. So that's going to keep both of those on no matter what, even if one burns out. So on that one, series or parallel? Parallel. All right, check these out. I drew these differently. What does this symbol, the little zigzaggy, mean? That's a resistor, right? Is a light bulb a resistor? Yeah, we just sometimes draw it a little bit differently. So here, follow the flow of electrons. We leave the negative terminal and we go across the resistors. There are how many paths there with this one? 2. So that would be parallel because there's multiple paths for it to take. Whereas here, how many batteries? How many switches? 0. How many resistors? 2. All right, let's look. They are on the same path. If they're on the same path, that would be series. Good, that would be series. All right, how about this one? How many batteries? How many resistors? How many how many paths are there? 1. So since there's just one path, parallel or series? Series, good. All right, this guy down here. Leave the negative terminal, split, split. So current keeps getting split. Parallel, good. How many resistors? 3. If these were light bulbs, would they have the same brightness or different brightnesses? Same. Since they're all hooked to the battery individually, they all have the same voltage going across them as well. Okay? All right, let's try to up it. Let's see if we made it a little bit more challenging. So electrons leave the negative terminal, right? We're going to leave the negative terminal. And then what happens here with the current? Splits. So resistor 2 and resistor 4, those ones are in what? Parallel or series? Parallel. But then look, that current comes back together, and then I just have one path here for resistor 1 and 2. What do you think about resistor 1 and 2? Those are in series. Good. So those ones would be in series. Okay? So when we're thinking about wiring a home, you are going to have some circuits that are in parallel, and you're going to have some circuits that are in series. Most things that are on the same wall are going to be hooked in series. Okay? Most appliances we want to hook in parallel. Why do you think I would want to hook something in parallel if it's a large appliance? Like a fridge or a freezer. Good. If one goes down, the other one's not going to go down too. So if this is my microwave, that's my fridge, and that's my dishwasher, if for some reason something happens to my dishwasher, is all my food in the fridge going to spoil? No, because that's still going to be functioning on its own little circuit. So typically things like large appliances are going to be on their own circuit just because it's easier for them to overload the circuit. Then you got to go downstairs, flip the circuit breaker, and make sure that it's good to go. Okay? All right, questions on our symbols of the circuits. So whether it's a battery, a wire, a resistor, a light bulb, whether they're parallel series. Doing good? Okay. All right, so you can go ahead, keep those in Notability so you have access